Assalamu alaikum students, I hope you all are well, safe and healthy at home. Welcome to all of you in this class of semantics. Dear students, previously you were taught about presupposition and implicature. And in today's class, I am here with another very important topic, which is speech act theory. This is the theory given by J.L. Austin. So, pay close attention to the lecture to understand each and every aspect of this theory. Let's start from the introduction first. Speech act theory is a theory of meaning, which is given by J.L. Austin, as I already told you. Actually, J.L. Austin has written a book with the name of How to Do Things with Words. And this is the book which is written in 1962. In this book, J.L. Austin has explained his theory, speech act theory, and different aspects of this theory. So, speech act theory is a theory of meaning that holds that the meaning of linguistic expressions can be explained in terms of the rules governing their use in performing various speech acts. For instance, the action, the utterance, promise, warning, request. So let me explain this theory from the different aspects, and we will also talk about the different points about the speech act, the different aspects which has been explained by the J.L. Austin in his book How to Do Things with Words, and we will specifically talk about the theory of speech act. So J.L. Austin has stated that language as an action. According to him, the purpose of the language is not only to give information, but it is also, its function is also to perform action. So speech act theory was developed from the basic belief that language is used to perform actions. It is not specifically with the purpose of explaining, describing, providing information, but it has the purpose to perform action. So according to him, language is used to perform actions. So on the basis of this concept, this idea, J.L. Austin has given the theory of speech act. So meaning and action are related to language. According to J.L. Austin, that our focus is not specifically on the meaning of the language, but along with this, the actions which are performed on the basis of the meaning and language is also the part of the language and meaning too, because we do understand the meaning, but on the basis of the meaning, we do perform actions. So speech acts is equal to actions performed via utterances. This is the point which has been given by J.L. Austin, that speech acts means utterances, performs actions. So actions are performed through utterances. For instance, the action of apology, complaint, compliment, etc. When you say sorry to someone, here, how did you apologize? The function of apology has been done with the performance of the utterance sorry. So this is the notion, this is the concept and point of view of J.L. Austin, on the basis of which he has given the theory of speech act. Similarly, complaint, compliment, requests, promises are done by words. So these are the actions which we do perform with utterances. So they apply to the speaker's communicative intentions in producing an utterance. Because when we say sorry, it means we have the intention to apologize someone. So the speaker expects that her communicative intention will be recognized by the hearer, and hearer will listen that, understand that, and hearer will perform the function. So both the speaker and hearer are usually helped in this process by the context, because context is very important. Whether you are uttering the word sorry for the purpose of apologizing someone, or whether you are teaching someone the word sorry. So here in both situations, the context is different. If you are uttering the word sorry for the purpose of apologizing, then here you are performing the function. But when you are teaching someone the word sorry, it means here you are not performing the action of sorry. Here you are basically teaching. So context to make it clear that which function you are performing while uttering certain sentences, and here the speaker and hearer both plays very important role for making the utterance clear. So this the context in which the utterance is uttered, this context is called the speech events or speech events. So we will also talk about the speech events. So J.L. Austin states that similar to physical acts, people also perform acts by using language, because it's common point of view that we do perform action with physical movement. But according to him, we do perform action while using language. For example, to give orders, to make requests, to give warnings, or to give advice, etc. Here we are also performing the actions with the use of language. So to do things that go beyond the literal meanings of what we say is basically the actions. And on the basis of this point, he stated that we do perform actions with the use of the language. So what one says, that what intends by saying it. It also matters a lot. The context is very important and intention of the speaker. For example, when one says that it's hot here, right? So it depends on the context whether the person is describing something to you or it can be the request too. For instance, if there is a hot and the person is telling you, it depends on the intention of the person, the context. So a speaker and hearer both plays very important role in speech acts and performing action while uttering, because the speaker's intention and plus context make it clearer for the reader, for the hearer, that how to perform the action. If someone is saying it's hot here, it may be a request instead of mere information about the weather, because if there is a hot, that it can be that the person, the speaker wants cold water, the speaker wants you to turn on the AC, whatever, depending on the context. For instance, if you are uttering in front of your mother that I'm feeling hungry, right? Here it's not, we cannot say that your purpose is just to give information. It can be the request, and on the basis of the context, the hearer will understand your point, and definitely your mother will give you food. If you are saying that I'm feeling hungry and mother is giving you the food, it means your mother got your point on the basis of the context that you basically want the food. So it depends on the context. Along with this, it depends on the intention. And the hearer plays very important role here, because the hearer understands and then perform the action which you basically want. So, a major concern of logical positivist approaches is to see how far meaning of a sentence is reducible to its verifiability. The extent to which and by which it can be shown to be true or false. Basically, the positivist approach, this is an approach and you can say in semantics or language theories. So according to this approach, we do understand the language, the meaning, we do understand on the basis of it's true or false. We do verify the sentences, whether they are true or false. But Austin opposes this point of view. Austin's opposition to these views is commonsensical and is based on the following observations, because he states that language is used for far more than making statements, or then that for most part the utterances cannot said to be true or false. So basically Austin opposes their point of view. According to Austin, the purpose of the language is not only to making statements for the purpose of whether they are true or false. There is something other behind the language, which he stated, which is basically the purpose of forcing other to take action. We do perform action with the use of language, not necessarily every time we do we do utter certain sentences or statements just to give information or describe something. So while opposing the point of view of a positive approach, he stated that there is another purpose instead of verifying the sentences true or false. So these statements not only describe things but also perform actions. For example, promising, warning, etc. So these should be called performative utterances. So he has stated that the utterances which are basically on the basis of which we are performing certain actions, those utterances, those words should be called performative utterances. Performative utterances may not be judged for their truthfulness, rather these should be assessed for their workability. So according to him, the utterances which are performative are not judged on the basis of whether they are true or false. We don't need to verify, right? So what we need to do, we need to assess their workability. Means how much they are performing actions. If you are making request, how much the other person is fulfilling your request, your order, your promise. So we do perform action with words, and workability of our words, of the words, that how much our words are performing actions, is basically the workability. So we need to assess the workability of those words. So according to Austin, all the actions, all the utterances which are used to perform actions are called performatives. So in his book of How to Do Things with Words, Austin basically made a clear distinction between the kinds or types of performatives. He had made clear distinction between constative and performative utterances. According to him, an utterance is constative. It will be called constative if it describes or reports some state of affairs such that one could say its correspondence with the facts is either true or false. On the other side, he stated that performatives, on the other hand, do not describe or report or constant anything at all, are not true or false. The uttering performatives basically are the uttering of the sentence, is or is part of doing an action, right? Which again would not normally be described as saying something, like marrying, betting, umpiring, passing utterances, passing sentences. So these are basically, we can say, the performatives which are used in which are used to perform an actions, and constative utterances are those on the basis of which we basically do verify whether they are true or false, but we don't need to verify or evaluate whether performatives are true or false, because here we need to check their workability. So these are the words utterances. With the help of them, we basically perform actions. So Austin further stated the performative that works is called felicitous and one that doesn't work called infelicitous. So felicity conditions basically enabling conditions for performative. He explained the attitude of the person who uses certain words. So the attitude of the person performing the linguistic act, like his thoughts, feelings, or intentions, is of paramount importance. Whereas the constative utterance is true or false only, but when we talk about the performative utterances, then performative utterance can be felicitous and infelicitous. And these are basically the moods, the thoughts, the feelings, the intentions of the speaker. And performative utterance can be felicitous, can be infelicitous. Performative utterances can be sincere or insincere, can be authentic or inauthentic, can be well invoked or misinvoked. As I do, for instance, Austin has given the example of at the time of marriage when it is stated that I do. In Christian, it happened that In Pakistani culture, we do say yes, but in Christian culture, it is called I do. So she has given the example that when a person states I do at a marriage ceremony, it is insincere and misinvoked if the person who is uttering is already married and has no intention of abiding by the conditions of the contract. So felicitous is the condition, is the mood, is the thought, is the intentions, whether the person is pure for what he or she is stating or not. So there must exist an accepted conventional procedure to include the uttering of certain words by certain persons in certain circumstances. And the particular person and circumstances must be appropriate for the invocation of the particular procedure. If the utterance is felicitous, we can say it's the sincere, it's true it's the truth. And if the utterance, if the intention of the person is that he or she is not willing to do that, but he's pretending and apparently saying that, then we can say the performative is infelicitous. So when it comes to speech acts, so J.L. Austin observed that many utterances do not only communicate information, but are also equivalent to perform actions, as I apologize, I promise, I name this ship, etc. So these are the examples. When you say I apologize, here you have performed the function. When you say I promise, the function of making, the action of making promise has been done here with the use of the words. So it can be stated that we do perform action with the use of speech. Austin in his book has also differentiated between explicit and implicit performatives. Explicit performatives are performatives utterances that contain a performative verb that makes explicit what kind of act is being performed. For instance, you can see here in the example, I promise to come to your place tomorrow afternoon. Here the verb promise has been used, right? And it is indicating that which action has been performed. So here we can say it's explicit performative. So I order you to clean your boots. Again, explicit performative because this sentence includes the clear verb, which is ordered. On the other side, the next type is implicit performatives. These are the performative utterances in which there is no such verb. For instance, you can see in the example, I'll come to your place tomorrow afternoon, clean your boots. Without the use of a verb, formative verb, action verb, here the sentence has been made. So still there is an action, but this is implicit action. But when it comes to these examples, here we can say these are the verbs. Addition of the verbs is making explicit performatives. So the assumption is that underlying every utterance, there is a clause containing a performative verb, which makes the function explicit. Here you can see some common explicit performatives: apology, promise, agreement, acceptance, advice, suggestion, warning, requests, betting, to second, to vote, to abstain. So these are the explicit performatives. Let's talk about the theory. So this is the speech act theory given by J.L. Austin. According to J.L. Austin, there are three aspects. He has given the three components. According to J.L. Austin, there are three elements of language: locutionary act, illocutionary act, and perlocutionary act. Locutionary act is the act of saying something. Illocutionary act is the performance of an act in saying something as opposed to the performance of an act of saying something. And perlocutionary act, it means saying something will often or even normally produce certain consequential effects upon the feelings, thoughts, or actions of the audience, of the speaker, or of the other person. In other words, a locutionary act has meaning. It produces an understandable utterances. So an illocutory act has force. It is informed with a certain tone, attitude, feeling, motive, or intention. When it comes to perlocutory act has consequence. It has an effect upon the addressee by describing an imminently dangerous situation. So perlocutory act is basically the consequence, the result of the utterance which has been made in the locutory act. So locutory act is the act of saying something. Illocutory act, it can be called the force, the intention of the speaker, what basically he wants. He basically imposes what he wants. It depends on the tone, the intention, the way how the speaker utters the certain utterances. And perlocutory act is basically the action which is performed by the hearer after listening the sentence, the utterance of the speaker. Let me explain these points one by one. Locutory act is a basic act of utterance at producing a meaningful linguistic expressions. It also it can be called the literal meanings of the actual words. What speaker says and makes sense in language. It follows the rules of pronunciation, the grammar, because here speaker utters something. So he makes a sentence and then he utters something. Definitely he will pronounce. That's why it includes the rules of, it follows properly the rules of pronunciation and grammar. So the meaningful locutory act is the basic act of utterance. The second, Austin stated that it's illocutory act. It's the speaker's intention in uttering the words. What speaker signals the users to which language is put in a society. Definitely, if the speaker wants to request, then he will appropriately choose those words which are common in the society for the purpose of the request, and he will adopt the particular tone. So the term speech acts is often used with just this meaning, performed via the communicative force of an utterance. The function intention that we have in mind, we have is basically performed. This is the illocutory force. So the intention is revealed by the speaker. Well, whatever the intention is, we might utter, I have just made a coffee, to make a statement, to an offer, an explanation. So this sentence, I have just made a coffee, made some coffee, it can be the statement, it can be an offer, and it can be an explanation. But again, it depending on the utterance. So an interesting type of illocutory speech act is that performed in the utterance of what Austin calls performatives. Typically, utterances of which are, I nominate John to be president. I sentence you to 10 years imprisonment. Or I promise to pay you back. In these typical and rather explicit cases of performative sentences, the action that sentence describes are nominating, sentencing, promising. So the action is performed by the utterance of the sentence itself. So illocutory speech act is the central to this theory, in which basically the action of function action is performed with the utterance. The third is perlocutory act. This is the effect, as I already told you. This is the consequence of the utterance. This is the consequence of the force which has been made by the speaker upon the receiver or hearer. So the effect or take up of an utterance on the thoughts or action of the other person. What follows an utterance? So the effect you intend your in utterance to have on the hearer. So what effect you basically intended while making an utterance on the hearer is called the perlocutory act. For example, to get the hearer drink coffee, right? So when you say that I have just made some coffee. So if your purpose is to offer that coffee, then to get the hearer drink the coffee can be called the perlocutory act. So the example, for example, when someone say, shoot him or her. So a locutory force may be ordering. It can be urging, advising the addressee to shoot him or her. And perlocutory force will be persuading, forcing, and frightening to shoot him, the actual function. So this is the speech act theory which has been given by J.L. Austin in his book of How to Do Things with Words. So in today's class you learned about performative, which has been stated by J.L. Austin are the words with the help of them we make actions, we do perform actions. We also learned about the types of the performatives, and you learned speech act theory given by J.L. Austin, locutory act, illocutory act, and perlocutory act. So it was all about the speech act theory, the concept of J.L. Austin given by in his book How to Do Things with Words. Well, here I'll wind up the session. I hope all the points are pretty clear in your mind. In case of any confusion, you can contact me and discuss with me. Take care. Allah Hafiz.